Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. You're here because you need an R3.0 build. I'm here because, well, I had nothing better to do. R3.0 gave us a lot to think about as far as our builds are concerned, even going as far as making us think about dusting off some old friends long forgotten to the fall. Now, I'm sure you've seen 386 videos posted today alone about Crown of Tempest and the arc ability spam and the oh my lord, it's so OP. The truth of the matter is, if you're like me and don't like walking around looking like electroshock therapy Sonic the goddamn Hedgehog, and just feel like Crown isn't giving you that art god feeling, I have a prize for you. Not only is there a build that does the same thing but better, you can do it with something that they gave you for free. Alright, so that looked good, right? That looks fun, yeah? Please tell me more, Graves. I like where this is going. And, you wouldn't be wrong. That did look good and that did look fun, but I need more. I need something better. I need to feel like I'm committing a war crime. Tell me that did look a lot more like Thor and a lot less like Hedge Fund the Static Hog. Let's get you suited and booted so you can get that rolling yourself, eh? So, first things first, let's talk about the abilities, aspects, and fragments you're going to need to get this build rolling. Your Rift is going to be up to personal preference. You can use Power or you can use Healing Rift. I personally suggest Healing Rift because with the subtraction of all our survival options from our previous season, Healing Rift is going to be our next best option as far as staying alive in a tense situation. You can also use Burst Glide if it's your personal preference, but Balance Glide and Strafe Glide are perfectly fine as well. I do suggest Chain Lightning quite strongly over Ball of Lightning, one, because it has a shorter cooldown, and both don't really do that impactful of damage, and Chain Lightning just feels like it, at least while amplified, gets a little bit more work put in. However, I am going to have to say you're going to want to use the Flashbang Grenade, mostly because unlike a lot of the other builds that are being touted around right now, our build is not particularly focused on just spamming grenades. Our build is focused on having a permanently amplified attack droid attached to our soldier. So all we really are looking for is the low cooldown that Flashbang Grenade provides. Our first aspect is going to be Electrostatic Mine. Defeating targets with arc abilities or defeating jolted or blinded targets creates an ionic trace. That defeating blinded targets and creating ionic traces from it is going to be very important later on. Collecting an ionic trace makes you amplified. Cool, but not particularly important where we're going. Lightning Surge. While sliding, activate your charged melee ability to blink forward, calling down lightning strikes that jolt targets as you materialize. This is ultimately what we're going to be using our melee energy for. That's why Ball Lightning, Chain Lightning wasn't really particularly something that you had to worry about, but more or less a preference if you do want to use it in certain situations. Our first fragment is going to be Spark of Beacons. While you are amplified, your arc special weapon final blows create a blinding explosion. This build is going to be using a whole heck of a lot of a arc-based weapon, and it's going to be our primary weapon for the most part, provided that we always have ammo for it, which, for the few mod slots, we will. While critically wounded, your melee and grenade energy regenerate more quickly with Spark of Recharge. Spark of Recharge is just a good fragment to have slotted right now because our health is going to drop low and because we're going to be in combat most of the time, having a little bit more regeneration on our abilities doesn't hurt, right? Spark of Discharge. Arc weapon final blows have a chance to create an ionic trace. Now, for all of you who aren't really sure what ionic traces are and why so many of these things are giving them to us, ionic trace, a bolt of pure arc energy that travels along the ground seeking towards its creator. When picked up, ionic traces grant ability energy. That's going to be a really big deal with us because we are going to create a lot of ionic traces. Spark of Focus. After sprinting for a short time, your class ability regeneration is increased. This one is arguable. You can swap it out for quite a few things in my opinion. If you don't particularly care for the regeneration on sprinting because you plan on being a bit more stationary, you could probably go with something like defeating a jolted target creates another ionic trace, but honestly, at that point, you're kind of almost overdoing it with the ionic traces. But hey, give it a shot. If you like it, go for it. Now, about the stats you're going to primarily want to focus. Recovery is great and all, but for the most part, it's kind of hard to come by if you haven't really held onto your armor pieces from long ago when recovery was such an important stat, or you're not a PvPer. Mostly, you're going to need that 100 resilience for that sweet 40% damage reduction. Yes, I know about the bugs going on with all the various classes and the damage reduction not applying. That's okay, you're going to want to get it anyway for when they fix it. 100% discipline, just because we want our grenade up as much as possible, and having this maxed out is going to make that all the easier. So let's talk about the star of the show. The main attraction to this build is going to make things just run so smoothly. The Cold Heart. You remember that old trace rifle from the Red War that you kind of forgotten about in your vault and haven't used probably since? Because one, there hasn't been a huge call for arc, and two, trace rifles haven't exactly been the most attractive weapon, especially not to take up your exotic slot. But with this reworked ARC 3.0 and our new call for ARC power weapons and ARC special weapons and just overall ARC everything, this baby has a whole new purpose. Cold Fusion. This weapon shoots a steady cold fusion powered arc laser, dealing more damage the longer it remains on target. That alone makes it pretty good for killing ads. It mostly taps red bars and just immediately removes them, and it kills majors with probably about a second or two of holding it on their health bar. But the main attraction that we like about this that's going to work so well with our build and the way we want to just pull in as many ionic traces as we possibly can is this. Longest Winter. Periodically generates ionic traces while it's at high damage state. It says while it's in its high damage state, making you think, oh, you have to hold the trigger all the way down to have a chance of giving you an ionic trace. Not exactly. If you tap it and keep it around its highest point, it will still generate ionic traces. And it's really just an additive effect on top of all the ionic traces we're going to be generating as it is. Now, for our early little duo in this duo of crime, we're going to have the Getaway Artist. You got one of these for free in that free little chest that they gave you at the helm at the beginning of the season. And you probably didn't think much of it because if you didn't pay attention to the Getaway Artist rework, then you probably just thought of it like that old little exotic that sat in your vault, again, collecting dust and doing nothing. Well, that's because the old Getaway Artist really wasn't impressive. It was pretty good for little cute builds that mostly had to do with the No Time to Explain pulse rifle and creating a little fire team of little floating bubble buddies. But with the reworked Getaway Artist, it's given it a new shine on life. Press Q to convert your arc grenade into an arc soul and become amplified. The arc soul functions as an autonomous turret. This works in two ways for our build to just make it just awesome. If you're able to become amplified on will, you're able to make fantastic use of all of the buffs that Amplify gives. So having a grenade is wonderful, but having a little buddy that's up for the better part of, I'd say 15 seconds, and having him do, honestly, very impactful damage because he is an amplified turret. He's not the little Arc Soul, he's the supercharged Arc Soul, and he's here to kill people. That's his job. But that aside, it's instantaneous access to Amplify, and that is going to be great. So if you're not me and you've been a smart boy going around actually leveling your skeleton key, you should have access to a few things, such as Surge Detonate. Arc grenades disrupt combatants, stunning them, delaying ability regeneration and lowering combatant damage output. Strong against overload champions. Gonna be used for those nightfalls and those raid encounters where you have to deal with overload champions. Then, you may have access to Thunderous Retort. This is a big deal and already making use of our Easy Access Amplified. Grants bonus arc super damage if cast while critically wounded or while amplified. Lasts until the end of the super activation. So, on command, we are able to give ourselves amplified, pop down either Chaos Reach for that sweet bonus damage on our boss, or Storm Trance for all that mob clearing. And I guarantee you, you'll notice the difference the first time you do it. Coming on to our other weapon choices. In your kinetic slot, I just suggest something that's able to cover the bases that the trace rifle cannot. The trace rifle has quite a bit of range, but for the most part, isn't something you're going to want to use on your general red mobs if you don't want to have a particular ammo economy to keep up with, which is another good point about the Cold Heart. It has an excellent ammo economy, so you could, but if you don't want to, I do suggest something like a submachine gun, or anything else that you're good at mobbing with, whether it be a hand cannon, a sidearm, an auto rifle, or a pulse rifle. Your choice. Then, in the power slot, you're going to want to go ahead and grab yourself a hothead. I can't suggest this enough. The hothead is going to be just great this season. It's both arc, it had fantastic rolls if you were one of the people that had one from a long time ago, or maybe you're just like me, one of the people that grinded out the strike that was providing it, the nightfall that was providing it, right before it left us forever. That's right, if you don't have one now, I'm sorry to say, it's gone. I'm not sure when it's going to roll back around, but I'm sure it will one day. But if you have one of these lying around that has something like 4 per weapon on it, go ahead and grab it. It's great. It's going to work awesome with the arc damage. It's going to work awesome with all the bonus arc damage, and you're just going to be a happy camper otherwise. Now, let's get into the mods you're going to need. If you have access to things like Bountiful Wells and Seeking Wells, by all means use them. You won't personally see them in any of my builds because right now, I don't have access to them. If you do have them, do slot them in ways that you see fit amongst the items that I suggest. Now, I use Font of Wisdom in my helmet, no particular reason other than getting my super a little bit faster. I don't have the kind of role that gives me a lot of intellect, and I don't think intellect is a very high stat priority right now. So if you have something that has a better role that also gives you intellect, but keeps you with that 100 resilience and 100 discipline, roll with it. Harmonic Siphon will also be slotted in these, along with diminishing returns. That's okay. It's still really good because we're going to have a lot of rapid fire kills with an arc weapon, along with whatever general armor mod you might need. In the actual Getaway Artist, or if another one of your armor pieces is already rolled to stasis, you can have Grenade Kickstarter slot. This is going to help us keep our grenade up as much as possible, just because the more we have it, the more flexibility we have of when we pop it, how we pop it, and how you keep it going. It just keeps things running smoothly. In our chest mod, I really would like to say that the thermal shock plating is going to be an awesome pickup. It's going to be in your seasonal mod, so go ahead and grab that, along with whatever general armor mod you have access to. I run Will of Striking. I know we're not particularly using it for melee abilities, but if that works out for you, then it's good. What I like it for is the second part. Picking up an Elemental Will grants you ability energy to your lowest current skill. So you just slot something like Arc Resistance, which I know is redundant with Thermal Shock Plating. That's okay, it still works out. And our boots, since I'm using a Trace Rifle, and you should too, and you can slot in other things, but you should definitely be using that Trace Rifle. I'm using Font of Might, just because who doesn't like bonus damage on their weapons, Trace Rifle Scavenger, along with whatever general armor mods you can slot. In our Warlock mod, I am really liking having Elemental Artifacts. It's just working out very smoothly, as well as Bomber, another way of getting our grenade back as fast as humanly possible, along with whatever general armor mod you're going to need. It's going to be good for the mods that you're going to need for this, and it's very flexible as you can see. A lot of this is just player preference. Whatever armor you have access to, whatever stats you have access to, go ahead and slot those in. The only thing that you're really going to need is that Getaway Artist. Like I said, you should have gotten one for free. Hope you're not too late. And with that, that's going to be pretty much everything you know to get the build rolling. I hope you have access to it all, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Have fun with the build, and I hope it gets you through whatever content you're looking to get completed. If you like the build and you like the video, well, think about subscribing. Maybe give it a like. And maybe throw it to a friend or two. Anything helps. For the most part, this has been me, Graves IV. I'll catch you later. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Take it easy.